way to the mic. They start dimming the lights, you start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs and the Ruben Studders. More once you discover. For all of the lovers of Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers of Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers of Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape, every one of us. I was kinda late, so I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the rest of them.
Hey y'all, welcome to a new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. So on this special episode, I have the honor and pleasure of talking to podcast host, super mom, and just all around amazing person, Carly Pretty, about wrestling and about her life. And I love speaking with her because honestly, she is such a huge fan of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and I just really needed to talk to her. So I'm glad we were able to have this amazing conversation. So tune in, chill out, and listen to this new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Today, sitting with me, I am so happy to have this amazing woman, this podcast host in her own right. She hosts a podcast about the New Orleans Saints, the NFL team. And on top of that, she's also a mother, and she's just an all-around amazing person. But most of all, I found her because she loves, reacting and liking my stuff on Instagram and on Twitter. This is Carly Pretty, and I'm just so happy to have her. So welcome, Carly. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming. Like, I've been wanting to come on your show for a long time because I love what you do. I'm a fan of what you do. I watch everything you do. And so thank you for having me. It's an honor. I swear, it's really an honor. I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being supportive, of everything, because I see your name popping up all the time on Instagram. So I was just like, and then when you asked me, I was just like, you know what? I believe it's about time I have a fan on, a wrestling fan on my show again to interview, because it's been a while since I've had a wrestling fan on. So I'm really glad we were able to do this. So I want to start by asking you, just about yourself. Like, when exactly did you fall in love with wrestling, and what made you fall in love with wrestling?
Well, I fell in love with wrestling when I was 9 years old. I grew up in New Orleans, and my brothers, we would always play wrestling. And every time we would play wrestling, he would make me be a wrestler and he be a wrestler. And he was always like Ric Flair. And then I was like Buff Bagwell, because we only watched WCW at the time. We never watched WWF. It was WCW Nitro. And so I wanted to be a Nitro girl like Stacy Keibler, but then I also wanted to, be with Lex Luger and all those guys. So I've been watching wrestling since I was 9. And then one day they came to New Orleans, and I snuck in the back of my brother's car, and I snuck in the Superdome to go to WCW. But I was small enough to sit in his lap, and I fell in love ever since then. Since I was 9 years old, watching WCW.
That's so funny, because that's kind of how I started too with WCW as well, but mine was during the Monday Night War, and I wanted to be a Nitro girl too, because I would dance along with the girls all the time, and my parents just thought it was the funniest thing. But that's really what I wanted to be at first, as a 4 or 5 year old. But dreams die, so it's okay though. Yeah. But that was my main thing. But then I also loved Goldberg at that time too. He was the first person for me. So I totally get that, and I love how you and your brother had that bond, and that's how y'all sort of connected. For me, it was me and my daddy, and then later on it was my sister, because I'm the oldest. But I totally get it, and I'm glad you actually been to a WCW show. I've never been to a WCW show. I never did that.
Oh, I feel sad.
I feel sad about that.
Yeah,
They
because
said that they're
it's no
fun.
longer here. But you know what? My parents, they never let me watch ECW because it was too extreme. So they was like, no, you're not gonna watch that. We're gonna let you do WCW and WWF until I felt like I was pushed in the corner where I had to choose which one I needed to watch. Like I felt like I couldn't watch WCW and WWF. Because you know WCW came on at 7 and then
Right.
WWF came on at 8. So you had that whole full hour to where you could just watch WCW. But when WWF came on, my brother was like, nope, now we gotta watch WWF. And then I stopped watching WCW, and that's when I became a WWF fan. And now I transitioned with them with WWE, but I love WWF.
Yeah, see, the thing my dad would do, he would tape them back to back because he would go to work, and whenever he couldn't watch them, at night when live, he would tape it, WCW and WWF back to back because that was during the height of the Monday Night War. So that was during the time where you just couldn't miss anything. So it was just kind of like, okay, fine, and I would wonder why he would flip the channel back and forth because it would irritate me. I was like, look, just watch one thing. But I didn't understand at that time that it was a heated battle going on.
Yeah.
And if you were a real fan, you was going to watch both of them. And that's what he did. And I just got used to it with that. But then, I just really wish I would have gone to a WCW show because I hear from a lot of fans, who were old enough to go to shows then, that a WCW show really was fun. So I guess that's a regret, but I guess not really a regret that I kind of have because it was out of my control. Yeah. I was a child, so I mean, there's only so much you could do. So who were some of your favorites in WCW?
Oh my God! So Buff Bagwell, back then you couldn't tell me that wasn't my man.
Oh,
Buff Bagwell, like I'm Buff and I'm the stuff. Like that was my dude. Like I was a diehard Buff Bagwell fan. Like everything about this man, that was me. And then I also love Stacy Keibler, and I think it was because she was really tall and skinny, and I was tall and skinny. Not the way she walked into the ring. My brother always told me, "You better not do that," because you know how she would bend over and yeah. So Buff Bagwell, my mom loves Ric Flair. Like she a diehard Ric Flair, so I have to go with Ric Flair. And I really Scott Hall. Like, hey yo, like give me the toothpick. Let me pluck it at you. Don't boo me. We the good guys. Like give me Scott Hall all day, every day. So those were my favorites in WCW, but that's because I was obsessed with them. I didn't like Goldberg though. I know you said you loved him. I did not, and I think it was because he was so good. And when he went on his winning streak, he had like 100 matches back to back that he's never lost. And that made me so mad. Like, can you lose? Like, I hated him because he was so good and nobody could beat him. I was just like, he cheating. Like, I don't know how, but he cheating. Like, how nobody can beat him. And so I did not like Goldberg because he was so good. But I grew to love, what was their name? Booker T and his brother. They
Harlem
had
Heat.
Harlem Heat. I grew to love Harlem Heat once they finally let them win their first WCW Tag Team Championship and they started to put them on TV more. Harlem Heat was my dudes too because there were people of color and there just wasn't many of them on WCW. And so once they started getting in the tag team and showing us that dang, they got some brothers that really could get down with these boys too. That was they definitely on a piece of my heart. So that was my favorites in WCW.
That's cool. So who were some of your favorites during the WWF era?
Oh, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Sable was my girl. Listen, Sable was me all day, every day. The wow, psh, boom, wow. Like I'm like, oh, you better walk through that door, Sable. You better show like the Sable bomb. When me and my brother would play wrestling, I would do the Sable bomb. Like that was my thing. Sable was my number one. Like I'm a diehard Sable fan still to this day. And then also I like DX because they didn't care. They didn't care about nothing. I'm not gonna lie, I was not a fan of The Rock then. I wasn't a Rock fan. I wasn't like he didn't do it for me. And I like Stone Cold because he was unapologetically him. And I like Kurt Angle.
Okay, so that's a pretty solid favorite. I feel like you're probably the first person to say that they really loved Sable like that. Because every time I hear anybody talk about Sable, it's always mostly men, and I can understand that because she was a bombshell, and I'm more than sure she probably still looks good now. Like, I wish she would come out more often and be on TV or something like that, because I would love to see her and sort of like, I guess, hear of what she would have to say about the women's division and how it's evolved now, because she's one of those legends that you just don't hear from as much anymore, and that kind of makes me sad. I mean, I know her and Brock Lesnar are married or whatever, but at the same time I'm just like, girl, you were a champion too, like, why don't you come out and say hi or something?
Yeah, so for me with Sable, what I loved most about her was the fact that she wasn't afraid to fight with the guys. Like, she wasn't afraid to be pretty and to fight. Like, yeah, we had China, but China was so strong and so buff. It wasn't too many that can really hang in the ring with her. Like, you had to give her some kind of TV time with the guys, And so, but with Sable, she was beautiful. All the guys loved her. But when she took that cat suit off and put them shorts on and them boots, my girl she got down to business. And I love that about her. And also because she was actually one of the first women who wasn't afraid to get into the ring with Jacqueline. And I love Jacqueline too. And for her to be like a fan favorite at that time, because before, all we used to see was bra and panties matches, you know what I'm saying? Or evening gown matches. Like, don't nobody want to see that. I understand it for the time and back then, but for her to be like, okay, look, I'll fight Jacqueline because Jacqueline's a real wrestler, and I'm not just here for Brian Panties matches. I know how to wrestle too. Right. They showed us that women can wrestle just as well as the men can, because again, back then she had a feud with Luna. She had a feud with Luna. Yeah. But that always really wasn't a match, because Luna was so crazy that she would snap out and the matches would never really be a match. So Jacqueline gave Sable a real match to show you that women really can wrestle. And so Sable has always been the forefront of me. Whenever I talk about women wrestling, who's ever my favorite, Sable is always that girl for me. Like, that's my number one favorite women's wrestler of all time.
Okay, that's great, and that's very valid. Like I said, you have basically a who's who of who you loved back then, so I get it. I 100% get it. So one question that I do want to ask you is, when it comes to like your wrestling fandom, as you grew up. Oh, we have a hello. Thank you, Cold as Ice. Hello, hey. When it comes to like who, like, as you grew up, like, did you ever share any of your wrestling fandom with any of your friends outside of your family, or did you face any type of backlash for being a wrestling fan, like being made fun of or something?
I didn't at all. I actually kept it to myself. It wasn't until I got into college that I started sharing my love for wrestling with other people. I know that's crazy, but as a child, I did not. It was just me and my brother. Like, 'cause that was something me and my brother did. And I never told anybody else besides my family. I never told friends, because growing up, when I was like in wrestling, me and my friends, we were acting. We were all in acting school. We actually got taught by Anthony Mackie, who plays the Falcon on the Avengers.
No way.
He's from New Orleans. So he would come to our school and he would teach our acting class. So me and my friends, we were into acting. So I never told him about the wrestling thing. Like, the wrestling thing is something that I did after school. And so I never told. It was just a family thing. But I was into it. Like, I was into it.
That's pretty interesting, because I know it's very different from my story, because I would tell people, or not just unprovoked, because sometimes wrestling stuff will come up and then I would talk about it with them. And then when they found out I had more knowledge than the average person, that was when they'd be like, "You really watched that?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And then they'd tell me like they did watch it, or they stopped at a certain point, or that they felt like it wasn't real or something like that. Yeah. But then I also have some of my family members who also feel like it's not real, or they look at me and my dad and they don't understand how we just sit and watch it for hours on end. And I'm just like, this is just how I was raised. Like, it's just normal. I get
that now, but everything that you're saying right now, I get that reaction out of people now. Like, how do you watch that? That's fake. And I was like, it ain't fake. I mean, no people go, they get bruises, okay? Like those
Right.
black eyes be real. Those bruises and those that tape on their back, that be real. Like it's not fake. It may be more choreographed because they practice it now so that they can do it in a safe way so that they can entertain you while still perfecting their craft, but it's not fake. Like
Right.
it's acting just like you have a favorite movie, just like you have a favorite music video. Like it's all acting, but they're entertaining us, and it's not real. Like when they go home, and when John Cena nose snapped when he fought Seth Rollins, and it was sitting on the side of his eye, that was real. When Bianca Belair got that black eye from Becky Lynch, that was real. When Carmella got a black eye from Nikki Bella, that was real. Like that stuff is not fake. It may not be as extreme as it was back in the Monday night battles between WCW and WWF, but they've changed with the time.
Right. And it's very real. And it's just like, I hate it when anyone says, that it isn't real, because it's a very real risk to it. Because there are people now who wrestled back in the day, who suffer a lot from, the beatings that they took. And some of them can't even walk. Some of them can't, necessarily speak correctly due to accidents and stuff that they've, dealt with. So it's not like, it's something that you go into just lightly. It's not like, it's a dance routine and you just do it and all. No, like if you don't do it correctly, you really can hurt yourself or hurt somebody else. And, and it's just like, and a lot of people make it seem like, oh, well, it's not like the UFC or it's not like football. No, it's not. But at the same time, you can still, there's still a risk to it.
Absolutely. That's why Paige is on the show. That's why Daniel Bryan got put on the show for a very long time. That's why Tyson Kidd, who we know been wrestling his whole life, him and Natalya from scratch, who is still now working backstage because he got injured, and it's risk to it. Like it ain't fake. Those injuries and those life-threatening injuries, to be exact, that's a real thing. When Nikki Bella couldn't wrestle for so long because of her neck problem that she had, that was real. Like there's nothing fake about wrestling. Like I said, they jazzed it up and put a little sprinkle and added a bow on it for TV and for the times that we're in now. But there's nothing fake about it. That's why you have to have a tryout. That's why after the tryout, you go to developmental so that they can perfect your craft and help you do it professionally and to do things the right way. Because if you don't, you can hurt yourself or your partner that you're with in the match. Like that's why there's steps and levels to it. You can't just walk into WWE and say, hey, I want to be a wrestler. So it's just, I hate when people say that it's fake. It may not be as entertaining to you now as it was back then, but there's nothing fake about it.
Right. Not at all. Not at all. And I, have nothing but respect, for people who wrestle in the ring and also referees too, because usually most of the time referees, do start out as wrestlers. I'm learning that. Now. And it's just like, and sometimes they don't, but at the same time, it does take a lot, for you to take all of that, as a beating and do that for your whole life. But honestly, I just have so much love and respect for them because they don't have to do that. Like they do that, for us, and they don't have to, but they do. And I just have nothing but love and respect for them, in everything that they do. So, I do have a question though for you though, outside of wrestling. You did mention off camera that you do have your own podcast, like where you talk about football. So do you like any other sport outside of football, or is football kind of like your other main thing?
So my podcast is a New Orleans Saints podcast called WDN Chatline Podcast. The WDN stands for Who Dat Nation, because that's what we call ourselves, and it's the Saints fan base. So it's WDN Chatline Podcast. But outside of that, no, I love sports. I'm a diehard gymnastics fan. I also love volleyball, diehard volleyball fan. Basketball was my first love. I actually played basketball. I played college basketball at NSU my freshman year in college. So I love sports. My podcast is about football, but tennis, basketball, volleyball, and gymnastics, those are my meat and bread.
Okay. It's almost like you're, when you said all of those sports mixing together, it's almost like I could see you doing something like on NXT where they have all their little skits or whatever of the other wrestlers talking about the other sports they may have played or something like that. Like I can see that, and that's really interesting. Like, was it hard? Like you said that you did play basketball. Like
I did.
Like, were you like? Did you ever just like want to pursue that professionally?
Basketball, no, but what I did want to pursue professionally is sideline reporting, which is what I got my college degree in. I've always wanted to be I've always wanted to be a commentator of some sort, whether it's the sideline of a basketball field, a basketball court, a football field, or a wrestling commentator, backstage like what Renee Young used to do, or Kayla Braxton now, or a commentator. So I've always wanted to talk about the sports. I never really wanted to play them, but I felt like I needed to play them to get a better understanding of the sport. But no, I never wanted Chanel, my daughter. I'm sorry, it's my daughter. She's just all over the place. I never wanted to play basketball professionally because once I started playing in college, they kind of took the fun out of it for me. But I've always wanted to talk about sports in some capacity, like again, whether it's on the basketball court on the sideline, or a football reporter on the sideline, or a wrestling commentator. Like I want to talk about it. Like that is my dream, to talk about it. And actually, Jazz, she's actually from New Orleans. She has a little wrestling program she do here out of San Antonio. And I kept DMing her asking like, hey, what if we don't want to do wrestling? I know you're teaching it, but do you have anything where you can teach us how to do commentating? She never replied to me, but I'm in her DMs heavily, and she just reads them. She never replies. She just keeps leaving me on scene. And I'm just like, girl, why won't you answer me? Like, I'm trying to find a way to really get into this. So this podcasting thing that I'm doing is kind of my way of trying to make my own lane and make my own way to talk about it.
Yeah,
which is why I'm so excited to be on your podcast, and why I'm so happy that you do what you do. Because it's inspiring to me, because I've been jumping through the hoops of trying to figure out how can I get in that field of talking professional sports. And then I just see girls like you who's just out there doing it and making their own lane for themselves. Like, I don't need nobody to tell me that I can't or cannot do this. I can just do this myself by starting this podcast. So that's why I say, like, I'm a huge fan of yours, because I see you doing it. Like, you may not have the millions of followers, you may not get the million of views, but every single week you're putting out content. Like, you're sticking to your guns. And when there's a pay-per-view, if there's a show on, whether it's Monday night, whether it's Tuesdays with NXT, whether it's Fridays with SmackDown, or Tuesdays with AEW, you're still putting out content regardless of how many views you get or how many people like your page. You're sticking to it. And that inspires me, because I've been wanting to do that but been so afraid. And that's why I support you so much, because you're doing it unapologetically. And you don't care about who watches, who doesn't, how many views you get. You do it because you love it. You do it because it's a passion to you. And that really do inspire me. That's why I was in your DMs telling you, girl, please let me get on your show. I'm in your comments. Can I please be a guest on your show? Because I really do love what you do.
Wow. Well, thank you for all of that. Like, I'm trying my best to, embrace everything that you're saying and not fall into a puddle of tears, because I'll cry.
No, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. Like, I'll cry, but I want to, direct it back to you though. It's just, when it comes to, doing commentary, and that's kind of what you say you got your degree in that, like, yeah. That's amazing, because sometimes I question whether or not I should go to school. I can't tell you how many times I've thought about going back to school to get like a master's in, that type of thing, because I've talked to Gia Miller, who's on Impact Wrestling. She does backstage correspondence, and she's a wrestler too. And I talked to her, and she got her degree, her bachelor's from the University of Alabama, the Roll Tide, them. Yeah. And so it's just like, in talking to people like that, it's just like the stories in wrestling tend to vary. It's like, some people go to school for it, and then some people don't, and some people create their own platforms and make their own way with that. And honestly, I'm starting to realize when it comes to having a wrestling career, when it comes to talking about it, there's really no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
It's like you can choose to go this way, you could choose to go that way, but either way, I feel like even with you having a degree and you know, even messaging Jazz, you know, a whole lot and stuff like that, the passion is clearly there, and you talking about football and talking about the every sport that you love, like that matters. And I know whenever I put out my content, I just try to remember like somebody gonna see it. So if I could tell you, you know, or give you any type of inspiration, it's the fact that, you know, for you not to feel discouraged, because someone is going to see what you're doing, you know, and want to add you to a thing or want to have you participate in a thing once they see your passion and once they see your consistency. Because that's basically how it happened for me. Like, I wasn't dreaming about being a wrestling commentator at all. This was not my dream. Like, I'll tell anybody this. Like, I started this podcast right before the pandemic started because I just needed a place to put up my opinions about wrestling because I knew I loved it. And it's just, and I was doing it in one place, but then it necessarily didn't work out. But then I just needed a place to do it. So I just decided to start the show. And the more I posted about it, you know, doing little stuff like the clips I do now, like they were nowhere near as polished as they were back then, as they are now. But people saw it. And then when I started connecting with people in wrestling and they started seeing what I was doing, and I started seeing stuff that they would post about certain opportunities, like with commentary or with certain things like that, the more I would get more information from them by just asking, and then just do my best, you know, to make it there. And honestly, like, and that's just how it's been. And, you know, I've been blessed, you know, to have the opportunities that I have had. But there really is no right or wrong way to do it. But I just know, like, the best advice I can give is that as long as you remain consistent and remain passionate in what you know you love, then it'll work out. Like, because even talking to you now, it's like you got all of this fire, you got all this passion for it, and you have joy too, and that matters. That absolutely matters. And I feel like, you know, someone is going to see you and someone is going to want you to participate in things, and it's going to happen for you. I know it is. Like, I feel it. So
thank you. I'm definitely sticking with it. And I'm the one that I'm gonna always reach out to somebody. Like, if I see somebody doing something that I'm like, you don't know me, but I love what you do, can I be a guest on your show? Like, I'm gonna ask somebody to let me do something on their stuff, because listen, I got a lot that I want to say too, but I'm not tech savvy. Like, I don't know how to do the StreamYards and the other way that people do their podcasts. So I just don't know how to start it on my own. So when I see other people doing it, it inspires me, but I also want to be a part of that community too. So I'm just like, please let me be on your show, because I could talk to you all day about this too. Like, I promise, I know.
Yes, and it starts right here. Like, this is a good way, you know, on my platform. Like, this is a good way, you know, for us to get it out. And I cannot wait, you know, to see more of what, you know, you have to offer, because I mean, you have it. Like, I really feel like you have it. So
thank you.
Definitely. So I'm glad you brought up commentary, because commentary is something that I am still learning how to do myself. So when it comes to commentary now, like, who are some of your favorite, you know, commentators that you like to listen to, you know, whether it be for inspiration or even just for entertainment wise?
In the WWF?
Or just period?
So to start, since it's wrestling, I genuinely love Corey Graves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know a lot of people don't like him, but he is so hilarious to me. I can't believe that he was a commentator before. Like, I know he started off as NXT, he was a tag champ, but he is gold as commentator. And I also like Pat McAfee. Like, he also inspires me, because you can see that he was a wrestling fan before he became a wrestling commentator.
Right.
I listened to Renee Young's podcast, but I'm not too much of a big a fan of it, only for the sense that I feel like she's very biased in her opinion. But I still watch it because she still teaches you educational stuff, and she still teaches you things that you can learn about the business, you know? But I love a lot of football commentators like Erin Andrews. I love her a lot. So because I'm a big football fan. So every woman that's a commentator in the NFL is my girl. Like, I feel like I'm sisters with all of them. I feel like I can do their job. I really can't even name a handful of them because I love them all. Like, I'll be sitting here all day naming all of them for you.
Yes.
Like Pam, I love her. I can name them all. Like, I love them all. Like, I don't have a favorite commentator. I just, as a woman, because it's hard for women. Like, they give us a hard time to get into the sports world. It don't matter what sport it is, especially when it comes to commentators. They will always give you a hard time because they think that women don't know as much as men. So I'm a fan of just women being commentators in any sports field. I'm a fan of all of them because I know it wasn't an easy journey. And I know it wasn't something that they got just off of their looks. You have to know something to get to where you are. And that takes a lot in a man's field. So I love all women commentators. Like, I don't have a favorite. I love them all because it takes courage and it takes dedication and it takes you to have a lot of sacrifices to give to do those things, because it ain't gonna be easy. You're gonna have people distracting you to where they want to sexualize you. They want to maybe talk to you. Oh girl, well let's just have a drink, and they're gonna try to throw you off in some way possible. And you have to stay focused and realize that the bigger picture is not this. It's what they're doing right now on TV, entertaining us, showing us that them too as women can do what a man do in a man-dominated field, whichever sport that may be.
Right.
So I don't have a favorite commentator. I love them all because I know how hard it can be to get to where they at. So I love them all because I'm proud of all of them.
Yeah, it looks like Cold as Ice is definitely agreeing with your sentiment. Yes, that part.
Thank you.
But yeah, like I 100% agree with you because it's like I feel like it's hard doing anything whenever it's a male dominated, space. But at the same time, you do have to keep persevering and know that your voice does matter, because through it all, it's like when it comes to sports, there's like some type of weird notion that we don't know about sports because we don't pay attention or all this other stuff. And I'm just like, no, like we pay attention and we know, like, because it's just like I feel like a lot of the conversations I have had about wrestling, has been with men. But at the same time, it's like whenever I talk to men about wrestling, it's like they can tell that I know my stuff and you're not just gonna dominate the conversation. I know, how to carry myself and how to carry myself in a conversation. When it comes to wrestling, and to not be shy about it either. So I admire so many women, commentating, whether it be in wrestling or in any other sports, because I love Charlie Arnold, who was Charlie Caruso. Yeah. She was my girl. I love Renee Young. I loved it when Lita was on commentary for the Mae Young Classic. Yeah. I loved it when Beth Phoenix was on commentary for NXT.
For NXT?
I miss her. I miss her so much. And I love Kayla Braxton. She's from Alabama, so
really?
I love her.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But you be seeing how them Usos, I don't know which one it is, but them Usos always flirting with that girl. And I'm like, both of y'all married, so whichever one it is that y'all need to leave that girl alone, because they one of them Usos definitely be flirting.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I can't speak to that. But it's just, and then when it comes to ESPN, because I do love to watch ESPN from time to time. She's not with ESPN anymore, but I found her on ESPN. Carrie Champion.
I
love her.
Knew where you was going with that.
Yeah, and I love Jamel Hill too.
Jamel Hill, yeah.
Like, and then Michael Smith. I love the show they had called His and Hers.
His and Hers.
Yeah, but then but then they got put on SportsCenter, but then it got taken off, and I was so sad. But
Yeah,
I love
I love
them.
that too. Yeah, me too. He's from New Orleans, so I've always watched it because I'm like, look at
Really?
him being from the. Yeah, he's from the
Oh,
same. He's from the same
cool.
place I'm from in New Orleans. So I used to love that show so much. And like you said, with Carrie Champion, I love her too. It's not that. It's not that funny. Sorry.
It's okay. You know, got love the babies. Shout out to kids. But you know, it's just like those are the type of people, you know, who are unapologetically, you know, using their voices, you know, with their platforms. And I look up to them, you know. And it's just when I watch ESPN, I feel like I'm learning something, you know, about other sports too. And, you know, and I just love stuff like that and just seeing them, you know, use their voice and just talk about whatever it is that they love. So, you know, maybe one day I would love it if ESPN had like a just one wrestling show that's only specifically talks about wrestling. And
Yeah,
for me to be on it, that would be lit.
it would. It
Like,
really would.
give me a job because I know they pay well. So, yes.
I have a
So,
wrestling question for you
okay, cool.
because I feel like out of the people who I talk to about this topic, they all disagree with me. Every man disagrees with me. You're probably gonna disagree with me too. But do you feel like Liv Morgan as the SmackDown Women's Champion brought the division down?
No.
See, I feel different. I feel like she did.
Okay, well, why do you feel like she did? And then I'll tell you why I feel like she didn't.
Well, first of all, I didn't like how Ronda made her look like such a weakling at SummerSlam. And the reason why I didn't like it, because for me, when you work so hard your whole life and wrestling is all you know, and then someone comes in from a different sport who had to learn the sport on the fly, because you can still see Ronda learning in the ring as she wrestled, you know? And they just come and they just dominate you the way that they did. It's like, girl, you worked for this your whole life. You didn't know how to get out of that arm lock. You didn't know how to get out of that ankle lock. Like, I watched Liv Morgan since she was in NXT, but there's a reason why she's always been the 3-minute match girl at NXT. There's a reason why they've always mocked her and made her feel like she was a Carmella reject, or, you know, Carmella 2.0, because they dressed alike, they wrestled alike, they looked alike. And when she came up in the main roster with the Riot Squad, there's a reason why everyone knew Ruby as the leader and the athletic one, Sarah Logan as the strong one, and Liv, the girl with the pink hair and the blue tongue. Like, she's always been, like, even when Shane McMahon took over SmackDown and they had all the women standing at the top of the ring and they all had the mic and they were talking, and then Charlotte looked at her and she was like, girl, I forgot you even worked here. It was like, Liv is just not that girl that's meant to be a champion. Maybe a tag team champion, yes, but she doesn't have that star power to me that's like, if she's my champion, I'm stepping behind her 100%. Like, I don't care about the sob story. I don't care about what it took for her to get to there, to get to that point, because everybody had to go through something to get to that point. Like, I don't want to hear about her childhood or what she had to get through, or the controversies or that she had to face. We all had to face controversies. They all had to face controversies. But you as a champion, to me, it set SmackDown back a good 10 years. And that's me exaggerating. It's just, she's just not champion type for me. And SmackDown is my show. I prefer SmackDown over Raw. But when they put the title on Liv, I was just like, I guess y'all just gave it to her because she's been here for so long, and she's like, hey, look at me, when am I gonna get a turn? Like, I remember back in the day when they were playing like ring around hot potato with the belt. Like, you get the belt, now you get the belt, now you get the belt. I felt like they just gave Liv the belt because they're like, girl, we see you, here you go. Because she barely put up a fight against Ronda. And then the week before that, when she was doing a tag match with Ronda versus Sonya Deville and Natalya, she tried her hardest to stay in the match, but you can tell she really couldn't hang for a long period of time. And it's just, that's not she just wasn't, she's not champion material to me. I'm happy for her, but I would rather the belt be on somebody that's going to put up a fight and going to show you exactly why they deserve to be champion.
Okay. Well, that is a fair, argument to make. And that's the argument I have heard from other women, that I even work with at Women's Wrestling Talk as well. Like, I've heard that type of opinion from them as well. And the reason why I kind of disagree with it a little bit is like, I'm kind of like in the middle. I disagree with it because of the fact that I feel like when she wrestles somebody, like at day one when she wrestled Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title, I felt like that was probably one of the best matches she ever wrestled. Like, because when you go up against someone like Becky, you're going to have to like bring your A game, and I really feel like she did do her very best against her. Like, that was one of the best matches I had seen her do. And it's just like, she did get better progressively, but then I also feel like they kind of missed the ball on making her and Ruby tag champions when they when they had that
Elimination Chamber.
Like, they didn't do that, and it was just kind of like, okay, well, when are you gonna give these two a chance? And then of course when Ruby left, and well, not left, when they let Ruby go, and then when they let Sarah go, Liv was just kind of out there to sort of not flounder, but just sort of swim in the waters alone. And she did find her way, with a couple of gimmicks that were crazy and all the other stuff. But at the same time, she was still there, putting in the work and being consistent. And then she won Money in the Bank. And I think a part of me also feels like WWE also did this because the fans were behind her a lot of the time. Because the fan base really was, kind of pushing for her.
Like the Kofi Kingston.
To have a chance. And I completely understand why, because she was working and she was getting better. But I feel like the problem with Ronda Rousey, in a sense, was the fact that she cashed in on Ronda Rousey, which is an opportunistic thing to do, but it's still fair because it's WWE and that's their thing, and that's Money in the Bank. That's how it works. But at the same time, I feel like maybe they should have let Liv maybe fight other people before she fought Ronda.
Right.
And then maybe we would have believed, that she would have had a chance against Ronda. Because even on the pre-show for SummerSlam, a lot of the people on the pre-show panel were saying they felt like Liv didn't have that much of a chance against someone like Ronda, who is big and bad, Like, they call her the baddest woman on the planet for a reason. Like, she was undefeated in the UFC for a while. And it's just like, and she won, Olympic gold, knowing how to tear limbs apart. So that's her specialty. And Liv, doesn't have that much of a reputation. And I feel like with her tapping out the way that she did at SummerSlam, it was like doing a disservice to her. As if, she was willing to do anything, including be scrappy, in order to retain it. And I didn't like that at all. So, but I won't say she brought down the division, because she's still good. Like, her abilities are still there. So I won't say she brought it down. But at the same time, they did make her look kind of weak. So like I say, I'm sort of half and half on that right now. But I didn't like how SummerSlam went. But that's a good question. Thank you. So I want to ask you, how do you feel about the state of wrestling, and what do you think is good about it, and what do you think could be better in it?
Wrestling in general?
Yes.
Oh, I think it's in a great spot. I think that it's amazing that for so long, we started off with WCW, ECW, and WWF. Then eventually WWF bought all of that and brought it over to WWF and came WWE, because now they have every wrestling brand that was there now under one big roof. And then now it's branched out, and you have guys who come from the independent circuit, guys who want to creatively be in charge of their own character, going over to AEW and Impact Wrestling, who also have fans and people are watching them too. You know what I'm saying? So now it's like you have guys who went from WWE to now they're at another wrestling organization, and you can still watch them and you can still see your favorite guys, and you have 3 big other wrestling companies, including NXT now, I think it's beautiful that you don't get to lose out on your favorite wrestlers. They may be on different brands, but and each of these wrestling different organizations, they have big names. They have top guys and women on their brain to keep you entertained. And I think that's a beautiful thing because it's not just the WWE anymore. They have competition. The competition may not be stiff, but they're definitely giving you something to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I think that they can improve on, I think for me personally, it's not the wrestlers that can improve for me, it's the creative that can improve for me. Like the way that they write these storylines and the way that they have these wrestlers go out there, it doesn't sit right with me. Like, because I feel like it can be better. Like, I don't like the idea of Natalya losing to Aaliyah in 316, Like, I don't like the fact that they use her as just a girl to put women over. I don't like the storyline that they have with Shayna Baszler because we know, and when Shayna Baszler was in NXT, she was that girl. Shayna Baszler was somebody to be feared. Shayna Baszler was somebody that when you had to wrestle her, you didn't really want to wrestle her because she was going to snap or break something. Like, she really was that intimidating. She really was that strong. And now they have her in WWE just putting her in little matches here and there. They have her losing to people that we know that this woman can beat with one hand tied behind her back, but that's just creative in how they're telling the stories. Like, they don't have these women being as dominant as we know they can and as entertaining as we know they can be. Because we've seen them for Io Shirai, Kairi Sane. There's so many women that I can name that in NXT, even with Nikki, almost a superhero. When you was with Sanity, you was that girl.
Mm-hmm.
You wasn't afraid of nothing. Now they got you as a superhero walking down with a cape. They let you win the women's championship, but you lost it to Charlotte like that. Like, we know how much of a fight you can put up. We know how much we know the talent that you can put in this squared circle, what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing that they can improve on is creative, because they have a lot of these superstars not living up to their best potential, and they're not letting the shows be as entertaining as it could be. Like, if you want to give us something that's going to like set the roof on fire, bring the ratings through the sky, give us Shayna Baszler versus Ronda Rousey. Like, they're both on SmackDown. Like, give us that. Like, let us see who is the better out of two of them. Yes, they train together. Yes, they come from UFC together. Yes, they're best friends. But they came to this business together for a reason. Now let us see what they can do against each other. Like, give us that match. There is so many, even with Shotzi. Shotzi is that girl. She can wrestle anybody. If you give her a match and say, here's 30 minutes, do what you do. Like, do your best. Like, you remember when it was, I can't remember. I think it was NXT TakeOver in Dallas when it was Sami Zayn's last match versus Shinsuke Nakamura, and Triple H told Sami, take as much time as you need.
Right.
It don't matter. Just take as much time as you need. He didn't care how long the match took. Go out there and give them people a match. And that's what they did.
They did it.
And I feel like with Shotzi and a whole bunch of those other girls, if you really just let them go out there creative, let them do their thing, they will show exactly why they got called up to the main roster. And it's not just for some 3-minute match to make time go by, just to give y'all something to look at until y'all get to the next main match,
Right.
And so my thing that I would change is creative in their storytelling, because they're not putting these wrestlers in the best position to be themselves. So
right.
Creative is what I would change.
Yeah, that's a valid answer, but it's funny though, because in this space right now, it's like WWE is in this prime space to change because of the changing of the guard of who's in charge of things. And the idea that, Stephanie is the chairwoman and she's the co-CEO with Nick Khan, and then who's in charge of creative? Triple H. who was in charge of, you know, the creative part of NXT, you know, when it was black and gold. So, and even with the ratings, like I saw an article from Variety that reported that Raw's ratings was like over 2 million, which is the highest it's been in like a while. So
in
it's
2
just
years.
like, right. And with that, you know, you had so many women at the forefront of it. You had Bayley, Io, and Dakota, you know, against Bianca. And then you had Becky come out there and do her speech, you know, saying, yeah, after, you know, her injury and stuff, you know, and it's like you had all of those women, and then you had Rhea in Judgment Day, you know, and then you had everything else going on. But at the same time, you know, the women were still, you know, kind of trickled throughout the show, and you still saw them all. So, you know, the change is going to happen, and it's probably going to happen a whole lot more, you know, once they get situated. A little bit more situated, because of course it's only been like less than 2 weeks. But at the same time, you know, and even creative in other places and other promotions like AEW, like I feel like the creative direction of AEW works for who they want it to work for. And I feel like they don't give a whole lot to the women, because of the fact that I feel like AEW, I am of the opinion that AEW doesn't necessarily cater to their female audience as much as they do to their male audience. And they feel like they won't value women's wrestling as much, because there's been times where I have watched Rampage or I have watched Dynamite, and then it's like the women will have maybe 3 to 5 minutes at the max, depending on who it is. But then it's like they'll give, you know, segments to people, to men, for longer periods of time when they're not necessarily doing anything of importance. And I'm just sitting here like, that's time you could have gave to this women's tag team match with these women that I know are on the indies and who could utilize that time, you know, or this champion that you have that could have more time or whatever. And it's just really sad. And I know that, you know, there's still so much more that AEW could do, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not sure if they have a writer's team. I think it's just one person doing the writing. But at the same time, I feel like once they branch out more and understand the value in the audience as a whole and all of their diverse members, as opposed to just one specific group of it, then, you know, it'll branch out and it'll get better. So basically I understand everything that you're saying. Like creative could, you know, could go through more of a change, you know, across the board, but there's still room for it to get better. But definitely in WWE, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. For instance, it is. I don't like this unified tag, and I don't like Roman having both titles, because for me personally,
it's funny, you have on his shirt, so you would think, no, you're not a fan of this.
I'm not a fan of. I like Roman, but I'm a Seth Rollins fan. I always thought Seth Rollins my guy. I like Roman, but I don't love him. But I don't like it because Survivor Series is my favorite pay-per-view ever. And who you gonna fight if you got both belts? Who the Usos gonna fight if they got both belts? This supposed to be Raw versus SmackDown. Listen, I live for this pay-per-view. How it's gonna happen if you got both belts and they got both belts? I feel like even with so many times they've beaten the Street Profits, at least put it for the Raw titles. Like, don't make it for both of them. You know what I'm saying? Put one set of titles on the line. Like, not both of them. Like, y'all can keep one and give somebody else the other. Like, I don't like them having all the titles, because it does. I respect the Usos because day in and day out they show up.
Right.
They have not missed a day of work. Like, they on Monday night and Friday religiously. Roman is every once in a while. Like, if you're gonna have both titles, my understanding was like they put both titles on him so that he can bring up the ratings on Raw and SmackDown, because he was such a big star. But he's not showing up. Like, he's becoming that wrestler that he despised when Brock Lesnar was champion and when John Cena was champion. How he would say, "Oh, you part-timers. Oh, y'all never come to work." Okay, but now you just became everything that you said you despised by those men.
Yep, that's how it be.
And it's like,
that's exactly how it be.
You getting paid $5 million a year to show up once every 3 months? And it like, I don't like it. Like, separate these belts and give them to other people, because again, the Street Profits, They may have never beaten the Usos every time they fought them, 3 times back to back to back. But they're working hard. They're dedicated. They're showing up to SmackDown and Raw, and give them. They definitely is deserving of a title.
Mm-hmm.
Like, leave them on Raw and leave them on SmackDown. But with that being said, and we speaking on changes in the WWE, that's another change that I think. I feel like the way that things are going right now, they're gonna stop this brand split, and everybody's gonna be on both Raw and SmackDown, but they're still gonna have their separate titles, if that makes sense. Like, Raw is still gonna have their champion, SmackDown is still gonna have their champion, but everybody's gonna be on both brands.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that feeling because you have Bayley. Bayley was on SmackDown before she showed up on SummerSlam. She was in the Raw Superstar. She was SmackDown.
Right.
Drew McIntyre showing up on Raw. He's a SmackDown. He's a SmackDown guy. The Street Profits showing up to SmackDown. They're on Raw.
Right.
They're not on SmackDown. So it's like Riddle, him showing up on SmackDown. He's a Raw guy. That Randy Orton thing been over since Randy was shelved. But he's still showing up to both things. So I just feel like at some point you got to stop the brand split if you're not going to give the people on their particular brands those opportunities that you're bringing people over from Raw or vice versa, those opportunities. Like, if I'm on Raw and you need a women's match, hello, I'm here. Why are you going to SmackDown? Just like when Carmella was in the ring with Bianca, and she was like, girl, when Bianca had the SmackDown Women's Championship and she came to Raw, she was like, what you doing here? Like, you're on SmackDown. Why are you on Raw? And I'm like, girl, I feel you. Like, it's like I just put them together. If you're not going to give the respective athletes on their respective brands those opportunities that you're calling from the other brands to come and do on TV, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just stop it and just put them all together if that's what you're going to do. But I don't like the unified tag or heavyweight undisputed championship, because only for Survivor Series purposes, because like I say, that's my favorite pay-per-view.
You know, I'm glad you brought up Survivor Series, because I didn't even think about that. Like,
See?
you know, that is interesting, because how they have the bloodline with all of the gold, but yet Survivor Series is like in November, and they have all the belts, and they can't fight themselves.
Exactly. But another thing with creative,
but they don't fight. But the thing is, they don't fight the belts. It's like they fight, you know, brand by brand.
correct,
But they don't necessarily fight for the belts. But at the same time, that is kind of interesting.
Yeah, but champion always fights champion though.
Right.
But they have both belts, so the tag champions are hardly ever in the 5 versus 5 tag matches. It'd be your Raw champions versus the SmackDown tag team champions. But they have both the belts, and Roman has both belts, so we ain't gonna get that match. But I will say again, going back to creative, if you're gonna have the Usos, the entire tribe, on both Raw and SmackDown, give Tamina a better creative script. Like, give her a better character than her chasing his 24/7 title, getting married to what's his name, back and forth, like Tozawa. Yeah, like, you see the potential that you have with this woman, with her joining the tribe. Like, you know what you can do with that, right? Like, there is so much potential in this woman, because we know she can wrestle, and y'all playing with her.
Right. And here's the thing though. Like, even with that, and Tamina wrestling and how she's been a champion before, because she was tag champion with Natalya. It's just, even Monday, you didn't even see the 24/7 title.
You haven't seen it in a while.
Like, you ain't seen it. Like, we haven't seen it. And it's almost like, I'm not upset about it, because Monday, like, I never really noticed it, but Monday, like, you didn't see it at all. And then even with the United States title that Bobby Lashley has, it's like they even had this whole little segment where they were talking about the prestigiousness of the prestige of the title, you know. And I'm just like, you know, this is different. So hopefully, you know, something different, more of different things will take place in wrestling. But I am excited for where it could go, and what, you know, and what
I can definitely see the potential in what they're trying to do. And shout out to Dakota Kai, because she's been on NXT for forever. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been thought she was supposed to get called up. Like I thought that she was gonna be one of the girls that got called up. You know how they do the Raw after WrestleMania and they have to. I thought she was gonna get one of those moments. I'm happy that she didn't though, because I would have hated if she would have got the reaction Bianca got with the dome, with the Thunderdome. Like
Yeah,
there are certain people that come from NXT when they do the Raw after Mania, they deserve to have a full crowd.
they do.
And Bianca didn't get that. She deserved it. And Dakota Kai, I'm happy she came back in SummerSlam, but she is very much deserving of one of those as well, because it took them long enough to bring her up.
Yeah, but then even in the midst of that, how she got brought up was really powerful too, because they did let her go. And the
Yeah,
fact that she got brought back, that blessed me, because I was just like, oh, thank God, because child, all those people that got let go, it was just like, why? But it was just really sad. But at least she got brought back, and I was really happy to see her again. So what what are some of your hobbies outside of watching wrestling, and outside of your podcast that you do on the Saints?
well, I'm a teacher.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a volleyball coach and an athletic director.
Hmm.
So I coach and look over a whole bunch of kids at my middle school. So that's one of my hobbies, and also I just like playing with my kids. I'm a mom, so spending a lot of time with them is something that I cherish a lot. Um, I also have this thing that I have in my backyard. I have I have a swing and stuff for my kids, but I also have a wrestling ring that I built in the backyard.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's but also on right on side of it, it has a little football field. So with the football yard, and me and my daughter, we would practice kicking the football through the goalpost, because I just want her to be athletic like me. So my hobby is literally just spending time with my daughter, playing all the sports that I love, and hoping that she will figure out one that she loves too.
That's so sweet. I love that. And the fact that you're a teacher, you're a coach, you do all of these things, and you're a mom. Like, that's awesome. I
I love
admire
being
mothers.
safe.
Like, I admire mothers so much. Like, I guess it comes from the fact that I value and love my mom so much.
Yeah.
And seeing everything she was able, to do. I mean, she had my father, like, it was my mom and my dad, but just seeing everything she was doing, and then also my grandparents, and everything they did for us. And every time I see someone else be a mom, it's like, it's something that I just admire, especially when they work and do it too. It's just awesome. And it's something that I hope maybe one day I can do. Like, I love children, but if I don't, and if I'm not able to, that's fine too, because I mean, it's okay. But I love mothers, I love children, and I just admire any woman that's able, to even still, go after their dreams while also still loving on their kids, because it's just a beautiful thing, and I admire that so
Oh,
much.
thank you. My daughter was Bianca Belair for Halloween last year. And
Hmm.
so she wants to be Bianca Belair this year, but now she wants to be a Bianca Belair Pokemon trainer. I'm like, girl, what? She's 5.
That's
She's 5.
sick.
So she
I
wants to
love
be
that.
A Bianca Belair Pokemon trainer. And I was like, girl, who about to do that?
That's creative though. I like that.
So parenting it's hard. Like no matter how many jobs you have, that's the most important one. And I'm
Hmm.
happy that she loves wrestling like me. So it's a hobby that I don't have to get out of.
Right.
She came into it, so I love it.
That's beautiful. So, what would you say the future holds for you, and what are some of your dreams that you want to come true?
For me, I really hope the future. So I never this is gonna be my first time saying this. I never said this on to anybody. My friends on social media don't know. So I have twin boys who are autistic, and so the future for me, I'm hoping that I can create a better world for kids with disabilities, to where they
Hmm.
can do stuff where they won't be judged, or no one will bully them. And what I mean by that is, like, my kids, they watch wrestling too, and they watch football, but because they're autistic, there are certain things that they can't do. So I'm hoping for me in the future, I can do something to create a path where they can still do football, but maybe they can like hold the football while the other football player kicks it, or they can be water boys and towel boys, or if they want to do wrestling, maybe they can like help put the ring up or help take the ring down, or just move things out of place for them, like bring the wrestlers their towels if they need medical assistance, or like something where kids, because I know that with WWE they do the Make-A-Wish Foundation a lot. So I'm hoping that for me, I can carve a lane for kids with disabilities to be able to still live out their dreams, and people around them are willing to make those sacrifices to, hey, we got to accommodate these kids too, or these adults too. And what I hope to accomplish in the future is that someday I can be a football sideline reporter, because that really is my ultimate dream, is to just be a broadcaster, a sports broadcaster, whether that's football, basketball, or wrestling. Like, I really, really want to be a sports broadcaster.
Those are awesome dreams to have, and the fact that you have a dream for others, that's also a beautiful thing as well. You're not only thinking about yourself, but you're thinking about the future for your children and other children as well. So that's a beautiful dream to have. And of course, you never know, as you might be a broadcaster, you might be a commentator, and maybe one day, people will be talking about us as commentators. The same way we were talking about other people who inspire us. Maybe one day people will talk about us the same way. So you never know, but I am so happy that we were able to have this conversation today.
Me too.
I'm so glad that you were able to come on the podcast, and I'm just so glad that, you're doing your thing out in the world, and you're doing better, and you're doing, you're being the light in the world, and that's all that matters. So tell everybody where they can find you or follow you on social media and anything you've got going on right now.
Okay, so I have a Saints podcast, Huda. It is called WD and Chatline Podcast. It is on YouTube and Facebook, but my Twitter and my Instagram is just Pretty Carly.
Thank you so much, Carly, for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. It was such an honor to talk to you, and hopefully I can make it a better habit of talking to fans more often. But
Okay, so I was sitting with my friends one day and they asked me, Stephanie, how do you record your podcast? And I said, with the Anchor app on my phone. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. It is absolutely free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. And it will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place. They even have classes and stuff that you can listen to that will give you all kinds of good tips on what you need to do in order to make the best podcast. So if you want to do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm, or download the free Anchor app to get started. All right, so I just want to thank Carly Pretty for coming on my show. It was an absolute honor to have her. And also, if you are a fan of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and if you like what I do and support what I do and want to come on and talk about wrestling, you are more than free to do so. You don't necessarily have to comment on a lot of Instagram stuff to do it, though. You can also DM me or message me or something like that and tell me you want to come on, and I'll be more than happy to have you on, because this was really fun and I really appreciated her and all of her insights. Also, I want to take a quick minute to talk about everything that's been happening this week in wrestling, and just the fact that Triple H seems to be getting everything back in blood. It's like between no Pooh Shiesty though, but it's like between Raw and watching Ciampa qualify to fight Bobby Lashley for the U.S. title, and then them showing the prestige of the United States championship and how great of a championship it was and how, you know, it continues to be. And then on top of that, seeing Ricochet get his opportunity to beat Corbin on SmackDown and have his great moment and show off and stuff. And then commentary continuing to glow and be awesome on both shows, as well as also NXT as well. And then also not even just that, but then also seeing the debut of Karrion Kross and Scarlett, the re-debut of these guys who I thought were gone and would probably never come back because they've been doing stuff on the indies for so long. After they got released, I thought, you know, they would be happy, you know, on the indies and stuff. So I was like, okay, fine, they're gone, you know, but they're doing good things, right? No, they re-debuted on SmackDown and beat up on Drew McIntyre as he's set to go up against Roman Reigns at Clash at the Castle in September. But I'm just like, what the heck? What the heck, guys? Like, it's almost like, and then with Shayna Baszler also winning the gauntlet and becoming #1 contender to go up against Liv Morgan for the SmackDown Women's title. It's like, what the heck? It's like all of the NXT babies that Triple H put a lot of time into on the black and gold version of NXT. It's like he's giving them new life and new opportunity, you know, to thrive. And I am here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. And it's just like, it's crazy because I was just talking to Dreon Santana on Women's Wrestling Talk this past Friday about Shayna Baszler and how she deserves this opportunity for the SmackDown Women's title because of the fact of, you know, it's like, I feel like ever since she fought Becky Lynch at the WrestleMania in 2020 for the Raw Women's title, and then she lost, it was like she was just always stuck in the mid-card or stuck in the tag team division for the women, and that's not necessarily an issue, but at the same time, we never got to see, you know, the rough and tumble greatest parts of Shayna Baszler after that point. So I really feel like her going up against Liv right now in the absence of Ronda Rousey is probably the best thing for her right now. And I'm so glad that she gets this opportunity. And then to see how everybody was treating Liv Morgan on SmackDown as well, with addressing her tap out and her pin of Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam, it's like, I can't necessarily blame the crowd for booing her in a sense because, or telling her that she tapped out in a sense, because it's true. We saw her tap out. We saw that on Peacock. We saw it happen, right? But then at the same time, it's like she did pin her, and I feel like they should run with the narrative of her, you know, doing whatever it took to keep the title, because my thing is, if you're going to be a shark, be a shark. Like, don't pretend like, you know, you were being, you know, like you weren't being scrappy enough to keep the title in whatever ways you saw fit. So, you know, literally stand on that. Just stand on that and just face whatever challenges you have left. But I don't know how much of a challenge she's going to pose against Shayna Baszler, though. We got to see how that's going to work. I'm not going to turn against Liv because I do love Liv and I do believe she has earned her opportunity and she did fight to get to this point. But also at the same time, girl, you know, you tapped out. So, you know, there's just the truth. There's truth in that. So, I mean, I don't know how they're going to spin that or play that. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm really happy with the direction that this is going in. Something else I liked in wrestling from AEW, from an AEW point of view, was the AEW debut of Madison Rayne, who is very accomplished in terms of TNA and Impact Wrestling as a Knockouts champion and a Knockouts tag team champion as well. She's supposed to be a coach for the women going forward. But I also like how Jade Cargill is challenging her, you know, basically laid out the law and said, hey, I want to fight you for the TBS championship this coming Wednesday. So I think that's going to be really cool too. But I also hate how on Friday they kind of made Kiera Hogan look weak when Jade made Kiera Hogan kind of go after her and attack her after her match with Layla Gray. It's just like, Kiera Hogan is such a strong wrestler. Like, she has fought Mickie James multiple times. Like, she is a former Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champion with Tasha Steelz. Like, out of, like, why make her look so weak all the time? It's like she always loses against people. And I feel like Kiera Hogan deserves a whole lot better than that. But, I guess we'll just have to see what happens with that. Justice for Kiera, please. And I guess a couple of other things I liked in wrestling this week was just the fact that I loved that Team KC Square from NXT 2.0 finally won the Women's Tag Team Championships on NXT, which they've been fighting for so long. Oh my God, I'm so glad they finally won. And I also love how I posted a clip about me talking about them as my top pick to win, and Casey Catanzaro, aka Katana Chance, liked it. I was just like, oh my God, she liked it. Like, she liked the clip of the show, and I'm really pumped about that. So Katana Chance, if if you're ever looking for a wrestling podcast to listen to, please listen to mine. Like, it's great. So please do that. Also, I also loved how I was TK Trinidad, shout out to her. It was her birthday this past week. Gave me the opportunity to sing a jingle for Tasha Steelz for the Creep Squad show that we have on some Thursdays. She gave me the opportunity to sing like a gospel like jingle for Petty Moments with Tasha Steelz, with Petty Steelz, and they really liked it. And then I got tagged by Lovely, shout out to Lovely, one of the co-hosts of the Creep Squad show, and with Tasha asking who sang it, and she said it was me, and I was just like, oh my God. And Tasha still said that I understood the assignment, and I was like, oh my God, Tasha, I'm so glad you liked the song. Because something that I don't talk about a lot, or I may have talked about it on a previous episode, but I just don't go into a lot, is the fact that I am, a trained singer. And I have been singing gospel music for all of my life, basically, in gospel choirs at any church that I've been at, basically, and also sang gospel in high school at my high school concert choir, and also with the Black Music Ensemble at Berea College. Shout out to them. I sang with them my entire time at Berea College. So I do sing, and I'm also classically trained as well. I've sang opera, I've sang anything classical, I've sung it. I've sung Broadway musical stuff as well. So I mean, yeah, your girl can sing. But of course, after I graduated with my degree in music, I came back home to Alabama because I went to school in Kentucky. I came back to school in Alabama and tried to audition for a number of things here in Birmingham, but then I was always told no. So I would sing at open mics every now and again, but aside from singing at churches and also singing for open mics, I really never, and also recording like a single, like a cover single of Diamonds and Pearls by Prince and the New Power Generation, I never really sang as much anymore, like, because I was always being told no. So there's like a point of rejection that I'm still trying to work through when it comes to my voice and stuff like that. So after that point, I just decided to just work and give singing a break because I had been doing it for so long. And then I always had wrestling, so that was something that I never really let go of. And then I started the podcast, and then everything just started popping off from there. So yeah, your girl Stephanie has a lot of talents, and one of them is singing. So I'm really glad that Tasha Steelz liked my rendition of Petty Moments with Petty Steelz, and I just hope that maybe one day, we can hug each other like you did, request for. It's never too late, and I hope that maybe one day you can be a guest on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. That would be fantastic. I would love to have you. So yeah, that's just a number of stuff that I did like in wrestling this week. But in the midst of that, I do want to say to continue to be your best self and love on yourself and love on, your family members and your friends and stuff, and cherish the times that you do have with them, because there's just been a lot of dark and crazy stuff going on in the world, and also there's been a lot of loss as well. So I'm just hoping that you're also taking care of yourself and just showing love to the people around you, blood family, your chosen family, your friends, and whatever the situations are, I'm just hoping that you're cherishing the relationships that you have. Because you just never know when it all could end. So I just hope that you're doing the very best you can in this world. So as usual, know that you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy, and also follow the Hardy Wrestling Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow it on social media on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. Continue to support the show. And continue to just, whenever you see me post anything, like it, share it on Facebook, as I do share clips on Facebook as well. And just continue to get the word out about my show and continue to support me and everything that I'm doing in wrestling and even outside of wrestling to a certain degree. So yeah, thank you for listening to this new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And until next time, bye y'all.